God is a God of many beginnings. When you think of the beginning in God, where do you start from? The answer to that question affects what actually emerges through your life. And it's so profound that we decided to have a conversation about it today. So join us as we take steps to move out of religion and into the kingdom here at Kingdom Made. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And let's get ready to talk about beginnings. If you're ready, friend, let's dive in. Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
Hi, Cameal. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing really good. The sun is shining. I'm looking forward to a walk later today. I just like being out in creation. And as we're having this conversation today, I think it's going to be really impactful. I'm so glad to be having it with you and with all of our
Yeah.
friends who are listening. Let us know that you're with us either as we are releasing it or whenever you capture this moment, because I think it's really important to understand our beginnings. When you hear the phrase, God is a God of many beginnings, there is so much that can hit our hearts, hit our minds. So I thought it would be a good conversation to have because it really affects who we are and what we do and what we believe is available to us when we connect to a beginning. And so the question becomes, what beginning are you connecting with? I know that's a mouthful, but just when I say God is a God of many beginnings, Chris, is there something that just stirs in your heart just hearing that phrase?
Of course, so many things stir in my heart when you brought that up. I thought of the beginning of parenthood, the beginning of a new job, the beginning of moving to a new city, the beginning of learning about yourself or learning about God. It doesn't matter the stage that you are in your journey, but there's so many at the beginning of a new day. I love the beginning of all things because in that moment, I believe there's so many hidden surprises and things that you can encounter or experience that makes me excited. So I truly love that. So I love that we're having this conversation.
Do you know, when I thought about beginnings, e- one of the things that really resonates with me is recognizing there's so many beginnings in our own life and seeing how that's patterned in the life of God, who is eternal. He is the beginning from the end. And so for him, a
Mhm.
beginning and an ending end up being this continual reality. We have many beginnings that we haven't fully tapped into. One of the conversations that I was desiring to have in our mobilized community was recognizing we were doing this series on sonship identity and just going through Genesis and talking about the reality that man needed to be present for what came forth to come forth. How are we
Mhm.
connecting Genesis 1 to Genesis 2? Because how we do that really frames up our understanding of the scriptures that follow and even understanding of what Christ
Mhm.
did for us. And so when we were beginning to unfold that together, this idea of beginnings came up. And it's been rummaging in my heart because if we have this conversation, let's say Genesis chapter 1 talks about in the beginning how God created the heavens and the earth. And then it goes on in verse 2 and the earth was without form and darkness covered the deep and the spirit of the Lord was hovering over the waters. When I initially heard that growing up in Christendom,
Yeah.
it felt like that was a one flow concept until I realized there were two beginnings in those two verses. There was the beginning where Moses was beholding within the narrative of all things housed in God. It was a
Yeah.
particular beginning where he was observing how Yahweh was creating heaven and earth, the origin of how the angelic came into order, the structure of his throne, the heavens of the heavens, the structure of the
Mhm.
physical realm. All of those things were part of a beginning that he succinctly captures in one verse. And there's
Yeah.
so much creation happening in one verse. And between that, everything that he was made perfect, now we have this conversation of something being in chaos. So what happened? There was something that was in between
Mhm,
the creation of heaven and earth to now there being in the earth realm having a void. When this revelation hit my heart through listening to sermons and studying the word and recognizing between verse 1 and verse 2, a whole lot of activity happened, including the fall of Lucifer and the warfare that happened in the spirit realm when they fell, which put things into chaos. And now
mhm,
Moses is seeing the aftermath of this
mhm.
operation where there's a reforming of the earth. In 2 sentences, we already have 2 beginnings discussed. And it just got my heart thinking about recognizing there's so much to the revelation of beginnings for us to step into. And I love walking through scripture and understanding things, but I'm going to give a space here and say, Chris, what's coming up for you?
I will always have these visuals as you speak, and I'm seeing all of it happening at the same time. And then I'll place myself there and say, okay, how do I fit into this? As we move away from it happening in that moment to how it's happening now, because there's so many things happening within styles, within families, and they're still beginnings, and there's still two different worlds coexisting together. So as we engage that, where do we place ourselves? If I think of an instance of when there are two different things that's happening simultaneously, they're completely different. I'm standing here. Where do I go and how do I fit myself? I can think of one was when I lost my son. That was the beginning of a completely different world being created for me. Losing a child and trying to enjoy what was happening all at the same time and standing in his space like, Lord, I don't know what to do. So there's bitter and there's sweet happening at the same time. How am I engaging that? And in that moment, I just stopped and I turned everything off and I sat with the Lord. And it forged this beginning of a relationship where I became solely dependent on his voice, his direction, and his love, because that's the only thing that was able to help me navigate through that season of my life. And when I tell you, it was a forging that came with love and it came with all of the raw emotions that you can even phantom. But still, his love was there to say, "Hey, you're not doing this wrong. I'm here with you. Trust me." And all at the same time, I evolved into the person that I don't even recognize anymore. I'm like, "Well, hey, who's that person?" There were moments when I would want to cry and make a sound, but I couldn't. I would sit there because I didn't understand. There was a beginning of a relationship where he said, "Just come into me. I've got all of the answers." So that was an important beginning for me that I wanted to share because it doesn't necessarily have to be the loss of a child. It's the loss of something that was important to you. That was one of the beautiful beginnings for me that I will forever cherish because I was able to see God in a way that that's the God I praise because he was the God of tender love and understanding and compassion and me not understanding, but he did. So I allowed him to help me navigate through the beginning of my journey. So that's what I wanted to share about the beginning, one of the beginning.
As you're sharing that, Chris, something that's standing out to me is the connection between a new beginning and revelation of God. That some action, positive and or negative, was the catalyst that brought you into him, right? There was this catalytic event
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
propelled you into him, that allowed a revelation of who he was to unfold inside of you in this deeper, more profound way. And to me, that is unlocking beginnings because I do believe God is a beginning of beginnings and he has many beginnings.
Yeah.
And that moment became a beginning in your earthbound history. And it brings to mind These moments of encounters that become revelations of a beginning. One of the beginnings I love is in John chapter 1, where John the apostle is bringing us into this revelation of Jesus, who is more than the one who came incarnate, that he was the living
Mhm.
word. So he says this phrase, in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. He was with God in the
Mhm.
beginning. Nothing was made that has been made. And he begins to unfold
Mhm.
this revelation that he now has because he was writing the book of John after he had this revelation of who Christ
Mhm.
was. He has now
Mhm.
encountered a deeper revelation of who Christ is. And from this
Mhm.
revelation, beyond what he experienced as someone who walked with God in
Mhm.
flesh,
That's like
he
that.
had this spiritual, elevated reality of Christ. He began his gospel so differently than all the other ones that we now
Mhm.
have in the canonized Bible, and he starts with "in the beginning."
In the beginning,
To me,
yeah.
it's this parallel between what Moses knew as a beginning in his day, and
Mhm.
now there's this greater revelation of who God is through Christ. John now comes in with a New Testament beginning that he begins with, yes, there's a heaven and the earth. Yes, there's a reshaping, but there was a beginning before that beginning,
That's why.
and Christ is at the heart of it. So
Yeah.
if we don't carry the revelation of living word, we're still living beneath the revelation of who we are. There's still a
Mhm.
beginning to us to unfold when we understand Christ as the beginning. And to me, that's a beautiful thing to meditate on and step into. As you were sharing your example around that beginning when you lost your son and what that shifted inside of you, one of the things that I would comment as a beginning for me was an encounter that I had back in 2014. And one of the moments in this, it was like a 4 or 5 day series of events and supernatural encounters. There was this one point where I was at this conference in Toronto. I was shaking profusely under what felt like fire burning inside of me. I ended up on the ground and my body was doing planks in the air, shaking and dropping. But it felt like I was contorting, like my body was doing all these movements. And if it's something that's new for people, it was new for me. The only reference point you have is demonic activity where people are doing all these movements. You attach it to whatever movie you've seen or experiences where it only had the negative attachment. But there was a God given, Holy Spirit filled, transforming action that my body was expressing in that moment. And it was like he was doing a 360 turn in my life. And it felt like my whole body was repositioned. I would come up, shake, and then I would drop in a different position. I would come up, shake, and then I would drop in a position. And like where my head was became where my feet became. It was this full 360 shift that was happening. And the one experiencing it, which was myself, didn't fully understand it. I had people who were watching and commenting. They're like, "Oh, she's now shifting out of this." There was a seer who was seeing all that was happening and announcing it. He was sharing it with who was there, Heidi Baker at the time. And so it was helpful to me because it gave me a reference point to what my whole body was experiencing. But it was this revelation that the trajectory I was on that looked so successful in the eyes of the world, there was so much more he had planned, and it required a whole paradigm shift. And what I mean by that is at that time, I was functioning in a full time job that I loved. I was successful at it. in terms of reputation, in terms of finances, in terms of the flexibility and the control I had in setting up my life. I was fully involved in church life, congregational gatherings, points of leadership, and volunteer work. Like all of those pieces of my life felt like it was flowing. And at that time, there were still miracles. We were engaging, we were growing as a community, and there was so much life. The Lord said, I still need to change you. There's still a beginning you haven't tapped into. I gave him permission to do things even when I didn't understand it. That moment of having my whole body shift as I was beholding him started a new journey in my life, a new spiritual engagement, a new soul identification with this God who I've been serving for most of my life. And I thought I was doing it in the way he designed me to do it. But in that moment, there was this recognition that there was something missing in my understanding. The framing that I known in what I would now call Christendom, the framing that I had preached and ministered in had brought me to this point, which would introduce me to a new beginning. And that new beginning meant God said, I need to show you more of me that you haven't known yet. And I believe that moment stirred a hunger in me because encountering the kingdom, encountering the Father, and encountering Christ in that way awakened something in my heart to say, there's more. And I know I'm made for it. So, what I knew at that point wasn't going to, it meant I had to drop things that worked in the past but would not work in this new present. It meant I had to hunger for things in a new way and realign how I define success. The epitome of what a Christian life looked like
Huh.
now became like a floor. That floor was possible because Christ said, I need to show you me beyond the framing that
Mm.
you've created for me. Will you surrender to who I am beyond what you believe I am? Will you give me permission to reveal me as I am to you? And for me, that moment was a beginning I experienced in time, but it was another phase of beginning because I had to go outside of time to really understand Jesus beyond the one who came incarnate.
Mm. Oh, that was so good, Cameal. As you were sharing yesterday, I had this encounter, and the Holy Spirit said, I need you to say this. And I'm like, okay, what is it? And it was, I literally had to repeat what I was hearing. And he goes, I am that I am, and I call to be what I cause to be. And that's pretty much all of what you were saying. It's like whatever definition or visual that we create that we believe represent God, that's what it is. And I'm more than what you've imagined. For me, it's like I just have this posture to where, Lord, however you want to show up, show up. My duty and my responsibility and my desire is to perceive you however you show up. So whatever's presented, I look for you in that because you said it. I am that I am, and I cause to be what I cause to be. And you're a good father. So if you're causing something to be, I'm looking for the good in that, even if it does not appear to be good. I'm looking for the good. I believe it just creates a space for us to remain childlike and to continue to imagine and tap into the vision of God, however He decides to show up. It's just perceiving Him and saying, hey, I have to lose control of the things that I feel like I have the control because we have that in us. I want things to be the way that I want it to be because it's my world and I live in it and I control it. And He know that very thing that you think you control, I want you to give that thing to me.
Yes. And you know what, Chris? You saying that is opening something up for me. When you said the things that we think we control to give it to him, I feel like he then returns it back to us and said, you actually did have control, but I needed to look like what I would do because that
Mhm.
is building up into co creating reality. We release it to him. He breathes on it, brings us into relational union and fellowship because he's a God who wants fellowship. He then turns around and says, "Let me teach you how to use what you've given to me so I can activate my life in you." It's this reciprocal release. When we see him, we see ourselves. And part of what religion does is create a separation. He always is worthy of elevation. But in that
Mhm,
worship of elevation, he turns around and speaks an elevated truth in us that
mhm,
activates us, right? And so in that release of God, you are worthy, he turns around, he said, and I made you worthy. And then God, you're in control. He said, but I put my words in your mouth. Creation will
mhm.
design based on what you say. I own
Okay.
it, but I let
Mhm,
you have dominion over what I own. Dominion is partly bringing the life of the owner to what creation will respond to by those he's given stewardship over the land. To give voice to a creator is to know that you carry his sound
yeah.
and you carry that capacity where your voice is his voice. And it reminds me of a moment when I was just being with the Lord and just worshiping him. And he made this statement. He said, "Camille, do you know that the words in your mouth are as powerful as if they were coming out of my own?" And it hit me because when I thought about the voice of God, yes, he can move mountains, like he creates, he's God. That piece was easy for me to step into. It
Mhm,
was the second half that
yeah.
said, it has the same power as if it comes out of yours. That hit my soul because it was functioning in a lowered belief that made that truth become questionable in my heart.
Mhm,
Because now I'm thinking about my version of me, of going, "Oh my
mhm.
God, I'm not you." And he was saying, "No, I need to teach you
Mhm,
what sonship in the earth looks like." Did Jesus demonstrate thinking less than himself when he said he only does what he sees the Father doing? When he elevated me in adoration as Father, did I diminish the expression of him as Son? Everything he said, did it not come to pass? And
mhm.
when we think about the revelation of Jesus, have we put ourselves in that revelation so that what Jesus did is our now reality? Or do we still think we're just humans having a human experience?
Mhm,
We've already diminished it. And so for me, that stirring this call up into the I amness of who we are in God. So we can actually do what Jesus did because we are the being that understands absolute connection, that understands absolute oneness, that understands the beauty of operating in divine union and revelation. So there's something there for me that looks like the life of Christ emerging inside of us. So that Second Corinthians, I think it's the Second Corinthians 3:18 begins to form this beginning that looks like mirroring the life of Christ, not in just the doing, but in the being. So I know I get passionate about some things, but friend, as you're listening into this conversation, you were made for more than just the doing of Christ. You were made as the living expression of God in the earth. And what you express of God is connected to what beginning you believe you come from. Before you were in your mother's womb, God foreknew you, He knew you. And that knowing is just not a mental awareness, it's an experiential knowing. It's a intimacy. It's he knew your sound, he knew your design because you were of him. You're of his kind. And what beginning you believe is the greatest voice of your identity will impact how that gets expressed to you. He will bring encounters. He will permit the consequence of our choices and still carry a good plan to bring you back into the reality of who you are. Are you a beginning that started with something that was done to you in your childhood? Do you connect with the beginning when you first came into the revelation of what Christ did with you and for you on the cross? focus there, and it's rightly needs to be highlighted, but there is more to grow into, because if he remains on the cross, you don't step into the eternal reality of the resurrection life that is now your life. If that is the reality of being known by him, there's more. But now he's the living word. He is the life giving spirit who existed before time. Do you recognize that you were there before time was created? Is that the beginning? Are you connecting to the one who is in all things and through whom all things have been made? Are you connecting with the allness? The omniness is the word I like to use of God. Is that the beginning that you are framing as the reality that you're functioning from? What about your before are you connecting with as your beginning? These are things worth pondering. It's something worth stepping into. If you're not sure where to start, I encourage you to connect with our community, the mobilized community, because in these spaces, we have these discussions. We wrestle these realities to help frame up who we truly are as sons of God, to live in the beginning of beginnings, and to see that there's these moments in our lives that there's these shiftings that become new beginnings in our earth experience, but how they work out, how they get expressed, what fruit comes from it is connected to what beginning in Christ are we using as our anchor. And the Lord will permit circumstances that we have designed so that he can come in and begin to reveal more of who he is, to allow the life of divine relationship to flow. And I know that's a mouthful because it's something I'm so passionate about, and it's growing as a passion in me to see that there's yet more and being kingdom made. And what that actually gets expressed is connected to which beginning we're beginning from. So
Yeah.
glad to have you back, Chris.
My do not disturb is on. But as you were sharing, I remember when I said, as I entered that beginning stage of my life, and I ran into the arms of God and I grieved there. And I sat there for as long as I wanted to sit there, and it looked differently every day. I had my way of experiencing Him in that season of my life. And then as I began to get strengthened and cleaned up, he's, I'm sending you somewhere. Do you trust me? And the place that he sent me was a community that I hold so dear to my heart. And I love them so much. I cry for them. I weep for them. I speak life into them. And it was in the very heart of a community that has caused pain, the very pain that I experienced. He said, I want to send you there so that what you experience, no one else would. And so it's going into facilities, detention centers, to say, hey, let me show you who and what love looks like. Because I would always say before I experienced the loss of my son, oh, I am loved. I am loved. I'm just full of love. I love everything and everybody. And Jesus said, let's see if you can still love. Let's see if you can still show up as love and light to the very people that caused you. And so I remember doing a writing exercise with my students, and I would always have them do an essay on who are you and why are you here. They would always do their exercises and they will be excited, and I would speak. This is within the first year of losing my son. And so I had a student that said, oh, Miss A, who are you? It hit my heart. And I had to stand there and said, I'm love, I'm light, and I believe in the redemptive power of Christ. Because in that moment, I could have chosen hate. I could have chosen bitterness. I could have chosen vengeance. And the Lord said, just give this thing to me. And as He continued to soften my heart and take that pain away and take the grief away. Not that I didn't grieve or miss my son or mourn him. It just looked different. And so that was the crushing of, I'm going to take something that you love so much, and I'll see how much you love me. If I'm taking this from you, you still love me. And I'm using that type of language because the Lord didn't cause that. He didn't do that. I was able to trade that grief and that pain and maintain the same heart that He'd given me from the inception. And so that was such a, and I would still say it was beautiful. It's painful as it was still a beautiful experience because love was still present. And so I did it all in love, with love, and through love. That's my lived experience of what it is to start, especially from a place where pain was the intended target. It's to cause pain and to take away something beautiful, which is love. I didn't trade. I maintained the economy of Christ, which is love.
That's a beautiful statement. The autonomy of Christ is love. I really appreciate that contribution because it brings it back. And I think it always will come back to the centrality of love. As we're having this conversation about which beginning you're connecting to with God and the beginnings in our life, it all will bring it back to the central beginning of God Himself, who is love. And to see how in this pivotal moment in your life, you chose to connect with the nature that you actually are, which is the nature of love. While hurt and pain may have been a driving force, it didn't define you. You allowed the life of God who is to become the grounding force for that. To me, that's the beginning of beginnings. It's love itself. It's the revelation of unconditioned love. And as we come to the end of this conversation, I feel like we just started it. That reality that our beginning is love is so true. There's so many avenues that we can use as a revelation of why that truth is true. There's the beauty of what's written in the word. When I think about what we call the love chapter in 1 Corinthians 13, to me, that's a revelation of who we are when we're functioning at our best, when we're functioning in the mirrored reflection that we are of Christ, that we are patient, we are kind, we do not boast, we do not hold wrongs. We love the movement of walking in faith and seeing mountains, but we understand that the value of it is grounded in the reality of love. Who we are at the core looks like the one we came from. And He's bringing us back into that revelation love. And it's bringing to mind that for me, part of that can look like seasons where I felt rejected, misunderstood, undervalued, whether it's in relationships that could be romantic or a family member or a parent where you feel rejected and overlooked and not rightly loved may have been a catalyst that made you realize something was missing. And for the ones who are listening, friend, that might have been part of why you love God so much because He showed you a different kind of love. And if you haven't known it, it's available to you. There's this deeper kind of revelation about the love of God that actually reveals you at your origin, which is love. And wherever love has been violated, He brings justice to it. He brings the restoration of the original intent, the beginning that He started with. He restores. And so love is our origin. It's our origin story.
Yeah.
And He brings
Yeah.
it back. And just to hear your example of choosing that origin so that others get to see their origin through you is to me doing the works of Christ. You're bringing the expression of God by being the living expression on earth. He'll create opportunities that He'll ask you the simple question, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? There'll be moments where He'll bring back the very person who caused the harm or a person who did the similar thing. There's situations where I remember telling someone, you hurt me and I'm choosing to forgive you. And they didn't even acknowledge that they hurt me. And when I brought it back to the Lord, He said, I thought you did it for me. And so it had nothing to do with their response, but everything to do
Mhm.
with my desire to live the life that I know is in me. They also love the science piece, which we talk about in our
Okay.
group membership. Our body understands where a lie is being generated. It actually weakens us physically. And there's tests that they've done that show that when you lie to yourself, there's actually a drop in energy because a lie doesn't is not birthed from love. You're operating outside of your origin, and it creates dis-ease. It creates
Mhm.
dysfunction that your body now has to give expression to. And so part of this healing journey that many of us are on, the rediscovering of our origin, is actually coming back to the origin of love because it'll be strength to us
Mhm.
because we're meant to function from it. And so, as we're wrapping up this conversation, Chris, the question that I love to ask is based on our conversation today, what would you say it means to be kingdom made?
To be kingdom made is knowing that wherever you decide to start, just start with love and knowing that Jesus is always there to be your moral compass to guide you to truth and to love and to light and life. And so that's what kingdom made means to me. Yeah.
What?
How about you?
To me, being kingdom made is recognizing that love is the origin of your beginning and that you have a beginning that's more expansive than what family group you were born into, what culture has defined you as, what a circumstance or situation has tried to give you as an identity. That being made is recognizing you have a beginning that exists outside of time and it's grounded in Christ. You have a beginning that is pure, holy, righteous, just, true, that was reinstated by Christ Himself. Your origin is love, and it's part of what it means to be kingdom made. And so, with that, we honor you, friends, for taking the time to join in on this conversation. Our heart is really to be vulnerable, to be honest, to be unscripted. And we don't come up with all of these list of topics. We allow the Holy Spirit to decide because there's something in it for all of those who are meant to come into this conversation at the time that you're receiving it. In the comments below, what's resonating with you? What beginning have you allowed to be the grounding point of how you understand yourself? And know that you are with us and that we love you. You are part of what it means to be kingdom made. And in this journey that you're on, know that you were made for love. We look forward to the next conversation. And until then, stay mobilized and we'll see you soon.